The SOBE Wine and Food Festival is in full swing. Last year, festival organizer Lee Schrager was called out for a lack of diversity. Well, he apologized. He sat down with us to talk about it, and he vowed to take the blinders off to representation. And as part of the recipe, that is the Wine and Food Festival. He's here now to talk a little bit more about it. But he's done so much in that year. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Lee, thank you for joining me this morning. I know you're busy. I know you're tired with the festival, which has been going on since Thursday, but I know you've been working on this year round. But so far, so good. Everything pretty much is sold out. But how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's nice to be with you bright and early, and a promise is a promise.
And that's right. You got that right, Lee. Well, we have a clip from last year where you promised change. Let's take a listen.
I was ashamed when we had that hard conversation that not if I offended, that I offended anybody. And my commitment to you was that it was not going to happen, and we were not making changes. We were making big changes, and it was not just for 2022. It was forever.
It was forever. So let's talk about forever. Let's talk about now, since those changes have been made, and have you been able to keep your promise and with some of those changes, increase some of those changes?
Well, I hope I've been able to keep my promise, and I don't think we're anywhere near where I want to be.
Right.
But I think that there are significant changes throughout the festival. I think last year we had a number of 35 or 37 black chefs, and this year we're at 65 or 67. Again, I'm not proud of that number, but I'm a lot prouder today than I was at this time last year. Right. And, it's just the beginning. I love the commitment that we did to 3 new events that we're doing over the festival weekend with Marcus Samuelson and J.J. Johnson and Mashama Bailey. So we certainly didn't forget, as I said, a promise is a promise.
And I love that, Lee. And I want you to share with folks out there, because you know what, when you talk to someone and you say, hey, I think more needs to be done with diversity and inclusion, some folks get very defensive, and that's how the conversation started with you. But then what I loved about it is that it may have gotten that way, but you actually took a step back and you listened, and then you decided to take action.
Well, I think it's important. I would never want to exclude anybody for any reason whatsoever, and sometimes maybe it just needs to be brought to your attention, and the way it was brought to my attention was really upsetting and disappointing to me. I mean, no one likes to think they're doing anything wrong, especially anything that might hurt or that does hurt and offend people. And it was a real wake-up call to the team and I told them I was embarrassed that we were not doing everything we should. And, I committed to you, and I committed to my team, and I committed to myself, most importantly, that things were going to change.
Talk about doing the right thing. Like you said, 30-plus chefs of color. This was in 2022. This was some of the changes that were made. This year, more than 60 chefs of color this year. I mean, I think that's an awesome improvement.
Well, I think it is an awesome improvement, but it's still not good enough. I mean, we have about 400 chefs participating, so 60 is about 15%.
Yes.
I don't know where that stacks up, but it doesn't sound high enough for me. But it sounds a lot higher than we were last year, and significantly higher than we were for years before that. So, I don't think it's ever going to be 100%. I don't think it's possible.
Right.
But I think I think that we're going to continue doing what we committed to do.
Well, I know I'm driving down the street. I'm listening to, some of the radio stations, and I'm listening to the advertisements now on black radio, whereas before I wasn't hearing that. And so, I'm really excited by that, because when I listen to that, I'm like, Lee, I'm like, Lee, listen. Right. So how important is it to have that dialogue? I mean, because it's not just you, Lee. I mean, we've all had to be in that room, in that uncomfortable setting, and have a conversation that maybe we didn't want to have.
Well, I don't think change happens without a dialogue and a conversation. And I think that had we not had that conversation with the Association of Black Journalists 2 years ago, that change wouldn't be what it is today. I think it really took people saying, hey, you're not being inclusive. And I said, okay, you're right. Not intentionally, but you're right. We need to do a better job. And that was my commitment, doing a better job.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, everything looked good. I mean, if you were looking from the outside, for anyone else, I mean, you're like, they're selling out, they're doing what they're supposed to do. It's looking good. But by bringing in more participants of color, you likely had a more diverse turnout, which translates into more money for the festival and the community as a whole. So your thoughts behind that?
Well, listen, I wasn't concerned about more money for the festival. I was concerned about doing what was right. And I'll have to tell you, I don't walk around the festival thinking, oh, how much Latin do I hear or Spanish do I hear, or what percent of the audience could possibly be LGBTQ. But last year, I made a concerted effort, a reminder, to look to see if the demographic changed at our events, and it did. And I don't know if the demographic changed because we had more black chefs or because we were advertising in black journals or the radio. But I remember saying to myself, wow, this is really great. Not great because of dollars, great because we should be inclusive. And again, I don't care why people buy a ticket. I want people to have a great time, but I also want them to recognize that we're inclusive of everyone.
I love it. I love it, Lee. And can you talk about, you mentioned a few, and you could say it again, but some of the eateries owned by people of color that will be represented this year?
Well, I think, what I'm most proud of is Mashama Bailey coming. Mashama is probably the most influential black female chef in the country. And I think she's the most influential chef, let alone black and female. So the fact that we have Mashama, I mean, she's considered culinary royalty. And again, we look at Bob's Burgers, small, I mean, that's such a great story. Bob's Burger was going out of business 2 years ago. They were at the Coral Gables golf course, and they were losing their license. And I had never heard of Bob's Burger. This is a true story. Never heard of it. And a friend mentioned him to me. I went to the Coconut Grove, the Coral Gables Farmers Market a few days later, and I saw a sign that said Bob's Burger. And I went up there and I introduced myself, and there's this hardworking black family, a mother, grandmother, her nieces, nephews, and I introduced myself. They had never heard of the festival. And I said, you should do the Burger Bash. They supposedly have great burgers.
Yeah.
And she kind of looked at me and I said, no, I really want you to do it. Give me your phone number. And I called her a few days later and I said, I want you to do the Burger Bash. It's going to be really helpful for you in everything you're going through right now. She said, well, we can't afford to do the Burger Bash. I said, there's no expense. I said, nothing. I said, we supply everything. Your expense is your time for being there. But you know what? They came. And I remember being up on stage before the People's Choice Award was announced, which is like the most prestigious award.
Yes.
And I never know who's winning. And I always ask to see the paper before the winner is announced. And I asked who won, and they showed it to me, and it was Bob's Burger.
But see, that's an example of having that opportunity because of the Burger Bash.
Right.
Because of you who reached out to her, and hearing there's so many incredible stories out there, but there's so many people that are impacted because of the economy, because of everything else that they're going through, and all they need is that exposure. And so when they get that, this is what can happen.
It's a great story. We're dealing with the Overtown. We're doing an event called Overtown Eat Up, and we're dealing with a whole new group of people. And somebody was on the email list, and he said, "Hey Lee, it's good to be connected with you." His name is Vincent Brown, and I said, "Why do I know that name?" And he says, "I used to own a restaurant called Mahogany in North Miami that I used to eat at all the time, and suddenly it went out of business."
Wow.
This is years ago. I did my office Christmas party there. I catered food there all the time. I loved their food. I said, Vincent, where have you been? I've missed your food.
Yes.
Now we've reconnected again.
Good.
So yeah, I mean, it's just the right thing to do. We always look when we're inviting people to the festival, who are great people? How do we go after people? We don't look here and say, black, white, whatever it is, gay, straight. We just kind of look for the best of the best. And
Absolutely.
there was a whole world of people who we weren't aware of. And I think we're ignorant of not knowing them. not of excluding them. And I
Yes.
think, I have to say, I never ate in Overtown before for no reason until Marcus Samuelson opened Red Rooster.
Red Rooster.
But since he's opened that, I eat the little greenhouse. I mean, I love the greenhouse. I eat there all the time.
And that's what it is. It's about opening our
We just
minds.
we didn't know it.
And yes.
Yeah, we didn't know it, period. That was it.
And now, and now look at it.
Yeah, no, that's
Now
the best
look
part.
at it.
Yeah, these stories are the best part about the festival.
Lee Schrager, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Jawan.
And I really appreciate you for just listening and what you're doing and creating change. And we appreciate you, man. So, and I love being a judge at the Burger Bash this year. Thank you.
How many burgers did you eat?
Man, too many. I need to lose some weight. I need to lose some weight. Lee Schrager, thank you, brother.
Thanks, Jawan.
All right, you got it.
Thank you.